Maritime terrorism. Why the East African community is the next potential target of maritime terrorism. Maritime terrorism is a politically motivated crime launched at or from the sea. In recent years, there have been a number of terrorist incidents on land in the East African Community or EAC region, all in Kenya. Nonetheless, no act of terrorism has yet occurred by sea in the EAC, even though Kenya shares both land and maritime borders with Somalia. This study investigated the likelihood of EAC being the next victim of maritime terrorism. It also looks at why the EAC is so vulnerable to maritime terrorism. This study found that the likelihood of the EAC being a target of maritime terrorism stemmed from the fact that it borders Somalia and that Kenya is at war with Al-Shabaab, a Somalia-based terrorist group. Al-Shabaab has significant experience in the EAC maritime domain and the possibility of Al-Shabaab using the Muslim youth it has recruited in Mombasa, Kenya and among ethnic Somalis living in Kenya further heighten the likelihood of the group attacking the EAC shores. This study further found that the lack of a regional maritime security strategy, including a maritime domain awareness program, unpoliced maritime waters, and poor cooperation between Kenyan and Tanzanian maritime law enforcement agencies make the region extremely vulnerable to maritime terrorism. The author of this study believed that this paper would act as a wake-up call to the EAC Secretariat and the politicians amongst the EAC member states on the importance of investing their political wills and financial resources in the regional maritime security effort. An overview of the EAC. The EAC is an intergovernmental organization or IGO. It currently comprises the state of Burundi, Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. The EAC was officially re-established on 7 July 2000 after a former version crumbled and was dissolved on 1 July 1977. The former version of the community was made up of the state of Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. These three states are also known as the founders of the new EAC. Burundi and Rwanda are the two newer members of the community taken on board on 1 July 2007. Kenya and Tanzania are the only coastal state of the community, the rest are landlocked. The EAC borders Ethiopia, Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Malawi, Mozambique, Somalia, Sudan, Zambia, and the Indian Ocean to the east. Through Kenya, the EAC shares both land and maritime borders with Somalia. In its current state, the EAC isn't a federation. However, the ultimate goal of the community is to have a federal government. A survey of the EAC maritime domain. As noted, the EAC isn't currently a federation. Therefore, the EAC maritime domain comprises only the maritime domains of Kenya and Tanzania. The EAC maritime domain has a coastline of approximately 1,900 kilometers and an exclusive economic zone or EEZ of about 383,000 square kilometers. None of the EAC member states have so far been able to extend their maritime zone to the outer limit of the continental shelf or CS despite attempts to do so. The CS areas for which the two EAC coastal states, Kenya and Tanzania, have made bids are absolutely vital for the energy security of the region and beyond. If the bids are successful, then potentially the EAC might have extra maritime waters further out over the continental shelf of about 164,000 square kilometers. Like all other such domain, the EAC maritime domain is affected by a number of maritime security threats. The threat predominantly affecting the EAC region are piracy, armed robbery against ship, smuggling of illicit drug, light weapon and human trafficking, illegal fishing, and environmental destruction. There is also an ongoing maritime border dispute between Kenya and Somalia. The dispute is now in the hands of the International Court of Justice or ICJ. Although there has not been any accident of purely maritime terrorism in EAC waters, such a possibility cannot be ruled out. Maritime terrorism in context. Maritime terrorism is a politically motivated crime launched by sea. It is sometimes considered as an act of war launched at sea. Hoffman considers terrorism to be the deliberate creation and exploitation of fear through violence or the threat of violence in the pursuit of political change. Whatever the definition might be, maritime terrorism is regarded as the deadliest maritime security threat. According to Buger, maritime security refers to threats such as maritime interstate dispute, maritime terrorism, piracy, trafficking or narcotics, people and illicit goods, armed proliferation, illegal fishing, environmental crimes, or maritime accident and disasters. For many years, terrorists have largely targeted sites on land. This is because the condition necessary for a successful terrorist attack on water can be fulfilled only with difficulty. Most terrorists do not have the necessary maritime skills. Obtaining competency at sea, for example, is both expensive and time-consuming. These are some of the reasons why terrorists prefer land over sea when it comes to delivering the deadliest possible attack. If terrorists had the maritime competency to command a ship or undertake combat diving, for example, that could put maritime terrorism on the world map as the deadliest of crime. In West Africa, for example, there is speculation that marine cadets in Nigeria are engaged in piracy and armed robbery against ships. These cadets do not find employment opportunities in their home country or anywhere else because of insufficient sea time served, among other reasons. As a result, they actively participate in maritime crime in the region. This is said to be one of the reasons why piracy and armed robbery against ships are still a problem in West Africa. While maritime skill is one of the prerequisites of maritime terrorism, in West Africa that skill can be outsourced quite easily. The evidence shows that in recent years, maritime terrorism has become terrorists' new focus. This is partly due to the fact that international commercial ships and other maritime infrastructure, such as mega port and offshore oil and gas rigs, appear to be soft targets for maritime terrorism. Maritime terrorists target maritime infrastructures with the goal of causing significant damage to human life and the environment, as well as triggering large financial losses. For example, blowing up an LNG ship, an oil tanker, a passenger ship, or a mega port would have devastating effect on the maritime supply chain and on the economy. In extreme cases, there could be huge loss of life. As with maritime security, the term maritime terrorism doesn't have an internationally agreed definition. However, the Council for Security Cooperation in the Asia-Pacific or CSCAP working group has offered an extensive definition of maritime terrorism. The undertaking of terrorist acts and activities within the maritime environment using or against vessel or fixed platform at sea or in port or against any one of their passengers or personnel, against coastal facilities or settlement, including tourist resort, port areas, and port town or cities. The International Maritime Bureau, or IMB, defined piracy as an act of boarding or attempting to board any ship with the apparent intent to commit a theft or any other crime, and with apparent intent or capability to use force in furtherance of that act. Thank you.